Hey guys, Trent at Black Horse Ranch here, and we've got something that we're excited about. You see behind me is our guest barn that used to be finished so you could live in it. We had some freezing pipes, some water damage, and major rodent damage. We're gonna take this thing and we're gonna rebuild it. Now before we go in, I just want you guys to know we've already been doing some work on it. We've done a whole bunch of demolition stuff. Don't get too frightened. There's a lot of stuff going on here. It's gonna be some work, and it's stuff that I haven't done before. A lot of you know that I moonlight as an unpaid contractor when I'm not working on the farm or doing my day job. I do a lot of projects for friends and family, but this is huge. This is a huge project. So I hope you come along. I want to show you some pictures of what it looked like before we did the demolition. Unfortunately, we didn't get any video of it. So take a look here and you'll see some of the pictures, and I'll point some of them out, and we'll flash back and forth through the video so you can see what it looked like before and what it looks like now. All right, let's go in. Let's go in and check it out. You saw what it looked like before. It looks like a barn. Look at that. This is all the stuff that we've done here. And so, since we have so much work to do, one of our biggest issues is the sinking foundation. And so you can see in the back corner there where they've done some work to pour some concrete underneath those beams to try to keep it from sinking, but to no avail. This building has sunk up to 4.5 inches in some places. And so what we got to do is we got to lift this barn up and put a foundation under it. And it's not like lifting a normal house because there's no floor in here. There's nothing to lift it by. So that is one of the major things that I have never done, is lift a building. And there's a lot of information out there about lifting buildings with floors and with beams and stuff like that. But that stuff won't work on this building. And so we got to figure out another plan. And we'll talk about that here in a little while. But this is the whole downstairs, first floor. And I'll tell you now, guys, if you're ever going to do some work and you're going to build something, make sure you know what you're doing, because this place looked good on the surface, but deep within, it wasn't done well. And this is what's causing us to have to redo a bunch of this stuff. So do it right, do it well, do it to code. All right, so let's go upstairs. Yep, this is where the stairwell used to be. Oh wow, isn't that pretty? So, as far as we can figure, this barn was built around the turn of the century, early 1900s or maybe even late 1800s. And I'm just gonna stay right here now, guys, because we pulled out the posts that hold up this second floor since there's no weight on it. But these floor joists, since this is a balloon frame building, these floor joists actually hold the walls from getting pushed out by the gambrel roof. So all the weight comes down the sides and wants to push out on the wall. So these floor joists have to stay here while we're raising it up. But you can see, my wife asks me all the time, hey, wouldn't it be easier just to knock it down and build it from new? And well, she doesn't ask me all the time, but she has asked. And yes, she's right, it would. It definitely would, but then we lose all the historic, the historic history, is that even a word? Of this barn. Now look at this, guys. Look at the, oh, it's gonna be hard to see. And that floor is really bouncy. So I'm gonna stay over here, there we go. I mean, that's just not conventional framing there. And they've taken out a whole bunch, so that used to look similar to this. And again, there's another non-conventional framing method there. There's a whole bunch of non-conventional framing methods up there. We're gonna keep that. And that top window up there is so heavy, I think we're just gonna push it out. We ended up breaking the other two, so we'll probably just break that one. But there used to also be up here a loft, a third floor, on half of this part up here. And we're gonna rebuild that. That wasn't built properly and it wasn't very stable. The inspector didn't like it, and so we're gonna redo it. We've pulled it all down. But there's lots of stuff to fix in here. We got some of the old barn boards underneath this new tongue and groove flooring that also wasn't put in correctly. And I'll show you one of these. If we look down this wall here, don't know if you can see that on the camera, but that wall has a bulge outward. And again, this being a balloon framed wall, it's these floor joists and this floor system that we're standing on that hold that wall and keep it from moving. And so things have been messed with, things have been cut, and so things have moved. And so we got to fix all of that. Oh look, there's the attic ladder. Can't tell in the video, but that's about 20 feet above my head. Yep, we gotta build that loft back before we can get up there, and then there'll be a lot of scaffolding work in here for the vaulted ceilings and stuff, but we're excited about it, guys. So I hope you guys come along and join the ride and help support us as we're putting this thing back together. Let's go take a look at the outside. We got these huge windows out, 7 feet by 3 feet, double pane safety glass this week. We took the door out this week. There's another one of those windows. They weigh over 100 pounds. They're heavy for two people. I'm not exactly sure how much, but I think they're well over 100 pounds. Still got the old hay pulley up there to put hay in the hay loft. And one good thing that I found, so the power for this building has it's got its own service, and it's underground, and it comes down this pole over here by the house. You can kind of see it on the corner there. But they actually pulled extra large wire in the conduit, and this had a 100 amp service in it, but I want to bump it up. The square footage of this when we're done will be bigger than the main house, so I want to have a 200 amp service out here. So luckily all that implies is replacing a few pieces of wire to splice onto the larger conductors that are already underground. So that's good. So this right here is where the water comes in. It shares a well with the main house, and that is basically a mouse house. So they built a little, because nothing was done below grade, they built a little hut over where the water pipe comes in the side of the building to put insulation on it, and they didn't seal it very good, and so guess what? Mice love insulation, fiberglass insulation, and so they made a nice house in there. And so we've got a propane service over here, which will be nice. The furnace that's in this building for heat is a propane furnace, and it's actually a fairly decent unit. So we're gonna reuse that. And there's also a propane fireplace that was in here. And we're gonna put in a instant hot water heater and a gas stove. So here's the sewer connection. Again, just kind of a hack job. That was open to the elements, so I'm sure there were critters getting in through there. This part of it is not deep buried very deep. It's really shallow, and I'm hoping it goes deeper. I would assume it is. I didn't dig down very far here, but when we dig this out for the foundation, we'll see, because that pipe could be in the way. But the septic tank is over here. You can see that square there. And so here's the back. Again, you can see, I don't know if you can see in the video very well, that wall bulges out. Yeah, you can't really see it, but all new windows. These are all single pane aluminum windows. We're gonna replace all those. We're gonna put different size ones in, and yes, we will frame them properly. The siding is over the top of the old barn shiplap siding, and this is just particle board, like T111, and it was put on mostly with screws. There's a few nails in it, and I don't know if you've done work here. I mean, they're kind of like the quality of sheetrock screws, and so any kind of shear forces on them or anything like that and they break. So not the best choice. And this is the far side again. And so we've already ripped out this pile of concrete. Was a porch that had all kinds of cracks in it. Wasn't real well prepped. That was all right here in front. And one problem I had, this concrete that's right here, you can see part of it. That thing is like 18 inches thick, and I couldn't even budge it with my tractor. So we're gonna get a skid steer in here and see if we can get under it a little better and dig it out a little more and give it a whirl that way. Now we've got over here, we've been trying to save a bunch of the barn wood. The floor in there underneath that old tongue and groove were rough cut 2x12 planks that were, 20 plus feet long. So we've tried to save a bunch of that. Some of it was rotten. It's obviously been used as a barn before. So, normal barn use on those planks, but these are some of the beams that are on the floor, and I'll show you where they were. So you can see inside of here, all along the base, are those same beams. Now these ones have a lot of rot, especially in the front, I could see. And why they built the barn with the beams laid on their side, on the flat, I'm not sure. They have a lot more strength, if they were tipped up vertically. But that's how it was done. And so you can see here, you can see those two concrete blocks in the back. So there's one right there and one right there. And then there's these supports all the way along here. And then you can see right here, where that beam was nailed in to the other beams. And so basically they had those same beams, two rows of them across the floor. You can see this little divot here, and that's where the second row was. And then they had 4 posts in here. And now don't freak out, guys, but I'm gonna pan up and you can see we took the beams and the posts out very slowly with a 30-ton jack. And you guys can't see it in the video, but basically that ceiling is just hanging. And so, like I said before, these joists are what's holding the walls together. And these beams are just composite, basically, you know, handmade, rough cut 2x6s. And so they're just hanging there, which is fine. There's no weight up on the upper floor. And we're gonna come in and probably replace this floor with larger members. We're gonna have plumbing upstairs, and it's just super hard to get any plumbing in 2x6, especially, you know, drain lines and stuff. So anyway, I'm hoping we can use those beams in other places. They're a little bit bent just because of how they were supported, but we're gonna try to use a bunch of the barn material, reuse it as much as we can. A lot of the stuff that we've taken out, the old barn wood, we've got stacked over here, and we're gonna use that for furniture for sure. And then there's other places where we'll use it where we won't be able to see it, just to match the rough cut timbers. The dimensional lumber you get nowadays, you know, a 2x6 is really 1.5 by 5.5. So there's a bunch of this, and you know, some of this we can't use. Like, it was a barn. These were floor joists, and you can see that oil stain on there. So they parked a tractor in there at some point. So obviously we're not going to use that for furniture, but you know, it'll be fine elsewhere possibly. And then these logs were also floor joists. They had a rough cut, and then every other space in between the rough cut were these logs. And so, I mean, you can see those gargantuan nails that they had nailing those logs in, and some of them are shaved so that they're the right depth, and some were shimmed so that they, you know, the smaller side was high enough to catch the floor. But you know, all axe chopped trees and stuff like that. No chainsaws back in those days. So anyway, we're gonna see if we can reuse these. I'm not sure if we'll be able to, but we want to keep some of the history of the barn. So, and out on this front, we want to put in a nice patio. When we bought this, there was a door up there, the one spot in between the 2 windows, and there's nothing. There was no patio or deck or anything out there, so we're gonna put that in. It was nice to have a window or a door up there that opened so we could throw stuff out during demolition. But okay, so let's talk about how we plan to lift this thing. So it's hard to see here. I was hoping that we could just support the barn as we poured a foundation underneath it, maybe lift it up a couple inches so we could just have room to work. But the more I got to looking at it, the more I thought, you know, this is just going to be a nightmare to keep water from draining up against the building. And you can see on this side, I don't know if you can see it very well, but that ground, the angle of the sun just isn't real good here, but that ground is basically right up against the wood, and it's kind of sloping toward the barn. Let me try to show you on the other side a little bit more. This side's not quite as bad because it is sloping away a little bit, but I mean, we're sitting right on the ground there. And so, you know, really the concrete should be 6 inches above that. 6 inches, you shouldn't have any wood closer than 6 inches to the dirt. And so really I just thought, rather than trying to make something work out here in the front where, I mean, you can see how high the ground is there. If we tried to make some kind of system, you know, where we lowered the dirt up against the building, we'd have to make some kind of a sloped drainage system or some kind of a ditch or something, almost like a moat that went around this thing, and it was gonna be awkward. So the right thing to do is just gonna be to lift it higher, build the floor and the foundation at the right height, and then set it back down. So this whole barn will actually be higher, I'm guessing, and I haven't shot it with the laser yet, but I'm guessing it'll be up a good foot at least higher than it is now. So, but that means, you know, to work on everything and get the floor built, we got to actually lift it, you know, like 1.5 feet or 2 feet, at least a foot higher probably than, you know, where we need to be working. So anyway, the plan on lifting, like I said before, if you had floor joists and stuff like that, you can put steel beams that crisscross under the floor and pick up the building. But what we have, I should probably go back in to show you this. We've got this beam that the walls are sitting on, and now you can see this in this corner, that beam is half buried, and as we look along this way, there it's almost all the way buried, and then over there same, and then there's just varying degrees. Most of the rest of it, you know, down there is exposed, but it's sitting on concrete. And just looking from the outside, I know this front beam is rotten. And I can see places all around here that, you know, there's been water issues. So that bottom beam, we're taking out. So here we are, guys. We don't have a whole lot of options for lifting, like I said before, since we don't have a floor joist system. With balloon framing, you know, the floor joists were just up against the studs here, and they were sitting on top of that beam. And so if you lift the floor, it just rips off of the studs, and the studs stay sitting on the floor or on the beam. So what we're gonna come in and do is we're gonna throw a ledger board across here, 2x12, and we're gonna lag it into each stud. It'll run 5 feet out past the ends of the building. And then we'll do the same on the outside. We'll cut the siding so that our 2 ledger boards will be the same height. And I've read that the siding gives you a lot of shear strength. You can almost pick the whole building up by the siding. And so we're gonna leverage that strength, and our outside 2x12 will be up against the siding. Now when we get out beyond the building on the outsides, we're gonna build an OSB gusset. And basically what that'll do is it'll make this wall into a truss. We'll have the 2x12 ledger across the bottom. That'll be like our bottom cord in a truss. And then we'll have the gussets going up, and we'll basically use double 2x6s to come up and at an angle and tie into the top plate, which is, this is a 12-foot wall, so we'll come up 12 feet, and then we'll gusset that all with OSB on both sides, and that should give us our strength basically. So any lifting forces on the outside of those ledger boards will push up on the top plate and also lift from the top plate. You know, that's the best I could come up with. There's not a lot of information out there about lifting balloon frame houses. I mean, normally construction nowadays, you have your floor joists go underneath your studs. You have your floor joists, your subfloor, and then your walls sit on top of the subfloor. So if you pick your floor up, everything comes with it. Not so with balloon framing, since the floor and the walls are independent of each other basically. So that's how we're gonna lift it. Once we lift it, I'll be way more at ease with this whole project. Or if this was a standard built house with the regular flooring system, I would be more at ease. But this will be the most nervous part, is lifting. We're gonna have, based on some of the calculations that are out there online, I'm estimating that this structure weighs in the neighborhood of about 100,000 pounds. And so we're gonna have 4 30-ton jacks. I've got 2 extras in case I need to build another gusset in the middle of these outside walls. But we don't need to do a lot. We've tried to empty we've emptied all the interior walls out and everything like that, so there's a very less weight or little weight as possible on the structure. Most of the weight is probably going to be in the roof. We've got the old wood shingles and the metal roofing up there. And so we're just going to go little by little and see what happens. So I hope you guys enjoy it. So guys, I've only worked on one other balloon frame structure in my life. And one of the things I remember about that structure that I was annoyed with was the blocking in the walls. And I didn't understand what it was for. And so hopefully I didn't leave that house in worse shape. But if we look over here, so your subfloor is going to be in here somewhere on top of your joists. And so if we look over here, there's blocking there. And basically what that does is it keeps your insulation from falling down in. But if you don't put blocks in there, you're basically open, the inside of your walls are open to your crawl space. And in this case, there was no crawl space. I mean, in a lot of places, there's no place you could have crawled underneath any of the floor joists in here. And in a lot of places, it was almost touching. So, but I just want to show you how important these blocks are if you're doing balloon framing. This is an example of where we have rough cut, and then we've got our standard, what you get nowadays, dimensional lumber. This is a 2x6. This is a 2x6 rough cut. Now, when you mix these, there can be problems. So, look back there, and you see there's a perfect size mouse hole all the way along the back of that block because that board is not the same width as the rough cut 2x6. And so many of these blocks were dimensional lumber, not the rough cut 2x6s. And then we also see down here where they've pulled off the bottom board of siding, probably because it rotted since it's sitting on the ground. And you can see the building wrap poking through there, but that is another mouse channel right there. And so what happened was the mice came in underneath, and you've probably seen, but like if you look over at that side, there's actual airspace under these beams. I mean, this was definitely a haven for mice. They could get in here really easy. And since they were in here, they could go right up the wall because those blocks weren't the right size. Right up the wall. They were all the way, every wall cavity. And then balloon frame again, if we look up here, there's no blocks there. And then it goes right into your floor joists. And so this whole thing was insulated. The ceiling, or the second floor, was insulated. There was mice, dead mice, and oh man, just nasty all the way through every space between the studs, in every wall, all the ceilings, and it was all the way up to the peak where they had insulation up in the peak. So when you can see, there's a piece of insulation that we didn't get down, but it's just been littered by mice. You can see the holes and everything in it. So that's just, something for you guys. If you ever come across balloon framing, those blocks are very important if you're going to keep it that way. Now we're going to come in here and we're going to dig this out and we're going to make it into a regular crawl space. We're probably going to use a drop floor system, which means your subfloor sits on the sill plate, but your walls are still on top of the subfloor. So we're not going to have the balloon frame anymore. It's not something you'd be able to pick up easily because your floor joists don't go underneath your exterior walls. But I don't like the idea of having an extra step when you get in, stepping up onto the floor joist level. And so we're going to dig this out. We're going to put in a drop floor system, and you'll see that when we get to that. And then that way it'll be a small step to get in, but we'll still have our clearance on the outside of the 6 inches of concrete before any lumber. So we're that far away from the ground. So I've mentioned a couple of times in this video, if you guys can support us or if you can help us. So there's a couple different ways you guys can help us get this project done. You watching these videos is majorly important. Giving us a thumbs up, subscribing. Those are some major ways you can help support this project. And the other thing is, if you've got comments, this thing can look spectacular, or not. We're on a shoestring budget. We're gonna make it look nice. This is gonna be our guest barn. But you know, you guys can help with good ideas, good money saving ideas. Just stay tuned, stay plugged into this channel, and you can help support us that way. And just keep us on your radar. Share the video with friends if you've got friends that would like this kind of stuff. We want this to be exciting. We want to take you guys through this journey. This is a huge project. We've done similar things to this, but nothing near as big as lifting a barn and putting a foundation on it and starting from the ground up basically, and trying to deal with all these issues. So you can see here we've got our first load of lumber that was delivered this week, so we're ready to go. We're gonna get this thing started, and we hope you guys will join us. So I hope you like these videos. We're gonna try to keep them as regular as possible, and just stick with us, and hope you enjoy the journey. So take care.